Jeff, could you just tell me a little bit about the background for Oshala? How did you guys get started and what you do?
So we purchased the land we're currently on in 2013. My background was really in vegetable farming, and Elise was really into herbalism and was doing a lot more herbal products, and she was kind of pushing me to do more and more herbs. And we started with kind of a vegetable focus, and over the next couple of years, we really transitioned to 100% herb farming. And at this point, we grow 78, 79 different herbs for the herb industry. So everything from echinacea to chamomile to burdock root, you name it, we grow pretty much everything we can grow here. And we sell to product makers, home herbalists, tea companies, tincture companies, body products, nutraceuticals, pet food companies, pretty much anyone that uses culinary and medicinal herb in their products or in their life. And at this point, we have 171 acres that's all certified organic and Sun and Earth certified. And we farm on about 60 acres of that gets rotated through. So we're about 40 acres a year in production.
Great. And so as I understand it, cannabis is among your crops. How did you decide to start growing cannabis, and what does that look like?
Well, we've been growing hemp, industrial hemp,
Gotcha.
for, oh gosh, I don't know. We were one of the first licenses in the state of Oregon, so the first year that they allowed it. And one of our existing customers was looking to use industrial hemp in some of their products, specifically high CBD, and kind of came to us and asked if we'd be willing to grow it. And, you know, when we really kind of looked at it, we hadn't grown marijuana on a commercial scale in any way, but we kind of looked at the hemp and said, well, this is what we do. We grow medicinal herbs for their constituents to meet buyer specifications. So, you know, it seemed like a really good fit. 98% of the crops we grow we dry as well, so we have large drying capacity. So we kind of started down the road that way. And, you know, on today's standards, well, I don't know, this year's a little different, but by last year's standards, definitely we're one of the smaller hemp farms around now, because it is one of our, you know, nearly 80 crops. But we've been doing that for quite a while, and then we also help out a bunch of other farms that have gotten into hemp, and just in some consulting, we do some propagation for them, and then we also help some of our neighbors with drying as they need it, and as we can afford to open up space for some of our neighbor farmers. But yeah, so we've been involved with industrial hemp since the first year is legal here in Oregon.
Great. And can you tell us a bit about your growing process?
We're 100% certified organic. We're also Sun and Earth certified, which we're really excited about. And we start all of our seeds in the greenhouse every year. Right now, we're transplanting out into our fields. We, unlike a lot of farms, we use no plastic on any of our crops. So our fields are completely plastic-free, which involves a lot more labor, but environmentally, we just can't really get behind the massive use of plastic for organic agriculture. And, you know, we're very diverse. We don't plant anything in large blocks. Even our hemp is interspersed. We grow a lot of crops within our hemp that we actually harvest. So we'll plant California poppy or chamomile or other crops in between our hemp rows. And we actually come in and harvest before the plants get too big. And before we go in to harvest the hemp, they actually are out of there as the canopy starts to close. But, you know, very diverse blocks. We're not a large monocrop of anything. So it allows us to really take a much more holistic approach as far as insect management and fungal management, dealing with molds and mildews and things like that. We're able to get away with really using natural systems a lot more because of that diversity. We found it to be very beneficial as more and more cannabis is being grown in our area, both recreational, medicinal, and industrial hemp. You know, we're seeing increased loads of mite pressure and botrytis and things like that seem to be becoming more prevalent in our area, which makes these practices even more important, you know?
Absolutely. Tell me, as just generally, what's the greatest challenge that Oshala Farms has faced or continues to face on a regular basis?
I think in regard to hemp, really the biggest challenge we face is the downturn in the market in this last year due to overproduction. You know, hemp's a really resilient, or cannabis in general is a really resilient crop. It wants to grow, and it puts on a lot of biomass in a short period of time as an annual crop. There's nothing else that grows as big as fast, you know, so we're finding that management of the crop is not as difficult as a stable market that's mature like our other crops. Most of the crops are on contract. We grow them. We know what we're going to get paid. We know where it's going to. And the buyers show up and they're excited about getting their product, where, the hemp industry is still, maturing, I guess would be the right way to say it. And there's a lot of legislative things that still haven't quite totally gotten worked out. And that's really kind of kept it in this kind of still state of flux with a lot of the larger companies, which is great in a lot of ways. It's giving a lot of younger companies opportunity to make a name for themselves, but it's also been a lot of instability for the farmer side of it. So I think that's been one of the bigger challenges, just to increase time constraints and risk in marketing, as far as being able to get that crop sold and paid for. But as far as the field's concerned, obviously it's a labor-intensive crop. We need a lot of people in the fall to get that crop in. We grow a lot of flowers, and they're all hand harvested. We're seeing more and more combines out there and mechanical harvesting of hemp in general for biomass. But it's a very different product than what we're producing, which is more of a high-grade bioflower. We're not going after a trim market, but we do, our buyers are discerning, and that they want a certain part of the plant at a certain stage, at a certain quality, and definitely requires, hand harvesting and being very selective out there. And obviously the post-harvest process is challenging too. Drying crops is always tough. And every crop we dry has a different technique, a different heat profile and air profile that we're trying to get to really capture its medicinal constituents at their peak and get, the product as high a quality in a shelf-stable format to our buyers as possible. So, just knowing what our buyers want in hemp in general, they just don't really know exactly what they want starting out. I think that's starting to become more refined. But the market's changed so much over the last several years, just in regards to what people are looking for. And just knowing, you really have to know what people are going to want before you plant, but definitely before you harvest, so that you can meet their needs. Hung-dried material obviously is different than something that's dried on screens or dried in our industrial dryers. And it all really depends on what people are looking to make out of it. So.
And how big is your team?
Let's see, I think we have 18 full-time people right now, and then we bring in another 10 to 20 people seasonally. Usually in the fall, we're pushing close to 35 to 40 people to get the hemp crop and then our root crops in. That's one of our big pushes is in the fall. There's just a lot of drying, a lot of material coming out of the field in both the hemp and a lot of our root crops. So it's a big push. But we have 18 full-time year-round people.
And have you had to lay anyone off or furlough anyone because of COVID, or if in addition to that
it's definitely been a challenge. It's added another layer. When COVID kind of hit, we were just starting to ramp up for the season, so we had, kind of our permanent staff on, and we did hold off a couple of weeks longer than normal before bringing in some of our seasonal staff back, just because we were trying to really keep the place under lockdown. We've had to implement a lot of changes to our processes and our procedures to maintain social distancing, and a lot of our work is outdoors and allows us to be far enough apart, but there's a lot of stuff we do that requires us to be closed. Even seeding in the greenhouse or working in the dryer bays or even on the transplanter, and just having to rethink every process with this new lens of safety. And we're definitely fairly isolated out here. We're lucky in the sense that, we're out in the country, and most of our employees don't live in the city either. But everyone's got different levels of stress in regards to COVID, and different levels of stress at different times of the day and different times throughout this. So, some days people are feeling less stressed about it than others, and a lot of just time spending communicating with our staff and having meetings about where people are at and where it's going. And it's definitely added a lot of layers to the administrative side, and just kind of slowed everything down. We didn't lay anyone off, and now we're back up to full seasonal staffing as well. But there's a couple of weeks there where we're like, well, let's just try to keep it, maybe almost a month, or like, let's just try to run it with the core group, and we're all going to shelter in place other than work, and really keep it this core group that's making a commitment to, we have a lot of bulk buying opportunities, so we bought food in bulk for everybody, and let's try to minimize people's need to go out into the community as much as possible. But at the end of the day, the workload to run this place is just too much for that staff to do alone. So, we did it as long as we could. And as we started realizing that, okay, we can do this safely, we've got more procedures in place in order to maintain all of our distance and safety standards. And we were able to start bringing some of that seasonal staff back. It just added a bunch of layers to cleaning and sanitizing, and definitely there's a cost to it, physically and emotionally. Mm-hmm. But we've been able to move through it pretty well. We definitely have had some of our buyers have some cash flow issues just because of their businesses, and kind of accounts receivable being stretched out further than we would like necessarily, as kind of causing cash flow crunches. But nothing that we haven't been able to, thankfully, knock on wood, at this point, kind of mediate. But yeah, it's definitely been an extra layer of stress on top of everything.
Absolutely. And this too shall pass, as they say, right? Where do you see the farm in 5 years, 10 years? What does the future look like for you?
The medicinal herb market's pretty strong. I think at this point we're in the top 5 or 6 largest herb farms in the country, and we want to continue to grow in that way. We're moving more towards direct sales. Kind of our long-term plan is Elise and I are looking towards retirement in about 15, 16 years, which is still a long ways off, but just trying to think about that. We were founded on a lot of education, and as our farm's grown, we've had to kind of cull the internship program and do a lot of things just because we're such a production-based farm. That we really want to be able to pull back in the later phases. So, I have book ideas I'd like to write in regards to farming herbs and farming profitably. We're seeing a lot of farmers just failing financially, and anyone that wants to farm, I really want them to be successful. And so my goal is kind of 10 years from now to integrate back in an education component of this, and then eventually kind of turn more and more of the farm into incubator space for new and beginning farmers to get access to land, and kind of going more into an education component and something where we can try to find outlets for people to sell their products as well. So that's kind of where we're leaning towards in the long term. I think over the next 10 years, our goal is to continue to produce the best quality herbs that you can find on the market and get high quality product to people and get them the medicine and culinary herbs that they're looking for, and really create a space for not only our customers to believe in, but really our team is a family here. And we have a lot of families we support, people with kids and homes, and really trying to create this space for our staff to love being here. Everyone that's been here is here for a long time. Most of our people have been here 5, 6 seasons now, and for a 7-year farm, it's saying quite a bit. So, how do we create those long-term, high-paying careers for people that they feel fulfilled and love coming to work every day and producing a product that we're proud of that really gets to the masses in a way that is both sustainable, good for the environment, and also just really giving people the highest quality nutrition they can get.
And would you ever consider venturing into cannabis cultivation for recreational or even medicinal use?
Yeah, we wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, we definitely have talked about it a few different times. I think for us, when we were first getting into it, the regulatory framework was very still gray, and I still think to this point, there's a lot of gray aspect to it. And I think for us, we were kind of looking at a risk versus reward, and, we're fairly, farming is high risk in general, and we're fairly law-abiding citizens. Obviously we're not opposed to cannabis in any way, but I think for us, when we were first starting out, we weren't really feeling like it was a comfortable environment to do that. And now as time's gone by, I think it's getting closer and closer, but at the same time, we have more and more risk just because we have more assets and more people that we're carrying. So I think as time comes out, as the legislation and things become clear, we'd be more and more prone to go that way. We definitely know we can grow cannabis great. It's a wonderful plant. We love having it. It's got great energy. We do grow a little bit for our own tribe, and we can do that wonderfully. Everybody's happy with our homegrown product, but I think a lot of it is that risk of putting what we built. So there's more clear, I think, federal guidelines as far as that is concerned. We've kind of been hesitant. Who knows where the next election is going to take us, or how that's all going to play out, right? We're in a great growing environment. We've got great land. There's great genetics available to us. We definitely wouldn't be opposed. And we've had some conversations quite a few times about it. But right now, to do a recreational farm in Oregon is pretty, I think it's closed at the moment. but it's pretty intensive as far as the change to your farm systems, and it would just be really tough for us to transition from our current farming practices to accommodate the legal requirements, if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does. It absolutely does. And what you say about it being high risk and not knowing where this election's going, and, you know, while it remains illegal at a federal level, it is risky once you have an established business that does not involve commercial cannabis cultivation. So I completely understand.
Yeah, and there's things too that are kind of even with the hemp that has become an issue. It's just even insurance and, things that you don't really anticipate becoming an issue. All of a sudden, obviously the banking and the insurance and workers' comp and all these other layers to the puzzle when you're running a business that you really have to look at as far as protecting your employees. The business is what carries all these families, and if we risk the business, we're risking all these people's lives too. So it's a weight we carry in these decisions. It's not just what Elise and I want always,
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jeff, this is kind of drawing to a close here. Do you have any parting thoughts?
Okay. In regards to hemp, I think it's a wonderful crop, especially for us. We've been able to diversify our fields and add another family of crops to our rotation. It's definitely added a fiscal revenue stream over the last several years to the farm, and I see a lot of diversified organic vegetable farms and other types of farms that have delved into it with varying success, mostly because of the market instability, but really it's helped these diversified farms have an additional crop family in their rotation to help break up what they're doing on an economic scale. And I think really people come in thinking they're going to do $1 million growing different cannabis products. And I think over time that we're really looking at this as more of a commodity that should be grown in boutique fashion, right? We should be doing the highest quality we can, but also how do we get this product in an affordable format to people who need it? And I think a lot of the traditional organic farming practices allow that, and I'm really excited to see more and more organic farms kind of taking up hemp and taking up cannabis in general. And I think Sun and Earth has done an amazing job in that, allowing a certification in the cannabis world that really kind of ties that in. And how do we, because we couldn't get our hemp certified for the first 3 years we grew it. That was a big fight. And, how do we make sure a third-party standard is looking at how this stuff's being produced and making sure it's being produced in a good manner, but also doing it in a format that people can get product that's affordable and that's high quality and that has, all the things that they're hoping to get out of it. So, I'm really positive that, we've seen a little bit of a market downturn. I think we overgrew last year on a national level. I think that as people realize what the market demand actually is, we're going to get that nailed out. And I think the future of cannabis is positive in a lot of ways, and I think it's a wonderful plant that definitely deserves space to be grown, and I think a lot of organic farms are looking at that as a great option to continue. And I commend Sun and Earth Certified and Dr. Bronner's commitment to that as well, and just trying to pull the recreational market into some sort of a standard where consumers can look at it and go, oh yeah, this is grown with my standards, in a way that I approve of, and I know that there's this label that they're going out and checking it, because before it's all kind of like, oh yeah, we grow it this way, we grow it that way. But having that third-party certification just allows buyers confidence to know that, hey, this is a brand I can trust. This is a farm I can trust because they're third-party certified. And these are standards that I agree with. And so I really commend Sun and Earth and the Bronner's team and backing this Sun and Earth Certified to really help bring some of those organic standards plus. I mean, it's organic plus really into the cannabis cultivation world and looking at how we're producing this, because we're seeing a lot of over-application of nitrogen and a lot just really too much nutrients being put down, and those things end up in our waterways and all these other things, and a lot of plastic being used, and a lot of practices I don't think necessary in order to produce these crops that, here at Southern Earth taking it on. We want to not necessarily police this, but highlight the people that are doing it right and doing it with the holistic approach and looking at how we can tie in natural systems to produce the best quality medicine possible.
Absolutely. I think that third-party certification it's great that now we have something to look out for, and the goal with this series is to really make our readers aware that that's an option, and that to even start to think about looking for a product that aligns with their values, that's ethically grown.
People want that for their medicine if they're smoking it or taking it in whatever format.
Exactly.
People want to know their dollars are going towards the things they believe in, and that they're not taking anything that's not healthy. So
exactly. Especially with the bad rap that the cannabis industry gets in terms of how it affects the environment, people need to know that there are other options, that there are other ways.
Totally. And I commend you guys for getting an article out there and talking about that, because at the end of the day, the last thing we needed was another certification, but we believe in what Sunrun's doing. And Andrew Black started Kind Certified, which was kind of the first one doing cannabis certification, and that kind of blossomed into this. But, I think that this is a huge market that it deserves this in a lot of ways. And I think it's just another way to mature the cannabis industry and make it more consumer friendly in a lot of ways and more transparent.
Yeah.
Because, what's the difference between that CBD product in gas station and something I'm getting at Whole Foods or my local co-op? Well, there's differences, and some of these different certifications we can help pick that out. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, well, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for talking with me, Jeff, and have a great day.
All right, thank you so much.